All right, welcome to lab number 3. This is just your walkthrough of what's going on in the lab. So part 1 is not using SPSS. We're going to use an Excel spreadsheet that I created that'll help you walk through this. It should be right inside, the link to it should be right inside the Schoology folder where you find the lab number 3. All right, so what you'll do is enter in the X and Y values shown here, and then you're going to change the Y values such that the correlation will get stronger as you move from scatter plot A to B, B to C, and C to D. And I'm going to go to that Excel spreadsheet and show you what I'm talking about right now. Okay, so the first values it asks me to use are 30, 20, 40, 60, 50, 10. So I'm going to change that 30, 20, 40, 60, 50, 10. Okay, so that is our starting correlation. And as you can see, the R is very small and it has a very weak predictive power for X predicting Y. There's not really a linear relationship between X and Y. So what I would do is take this information and just record it here under A, what R is, what R squared is, what SY prime is, and what SY is. I'm going to record all that information there, and then I would come to this next area where it has 10, 40, 60, 20, 50, 30, plug those values in, and see how it changes. So what I'm going to do right now is step away from the lab and just have you think about how this works just for a second. So what's going on here is it's plotting the relationship between X and Y. And right now there's not really a strong relationship. But you can imagine if I swap the 10 and the 50, it's going to get a little bit stronger. So now I have a little bit more of a positive relationship. And let's take another of these two. So the 40 and the 10, that's not really going in a linear direction. So I'm going to switch those two, change that to 10 and 40. And now you see I've got a stronger relationship. So what's happening? So the line, number one, the line's getting steeper. That's the regression line. Number two, R is getting stronger. Number three, R squared is getting bigger. I'm accounting for more variance in the stress level. And then you'll notice also that SY prime is getting smaller. SY, which is the standard deviation of Y, is kind of what we compare to. That has not changed because that's just a univariate statistic. But SY prime, the relationship between X and Y and the variability around the regression line, that's getting smaller. All right, I'm going to do one last one here for you. Let's take this. If the 60 and the 40, if I switch those two, should get a little bit stronger. And there we go. Now R is up to 0.71. R squared is equal to 0.51. SY prime, the standard error of the predictor, has gotten a little bit smaller. So it's just one way that you can see how this stuff interacts and what's happening to the regression line and everything else as the relationship gets stronger. All right. All right, the next part of the lab, questions 2 through 8, just ask you to, or I should say 2 through 7, ask you to figure out what's going on and what's changing as the relationship gets stronger. And then it's asking you here, in the spaces below, these correspond to these A, B, C, and D above. You're working out the regression equation for each one of these based on the equations you took from the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so that's all part 1. You're not doing anything with SPSS yet. When you get to part 2, here's where we're going to pull in SPSS, and you're going to have to open up SPSS and type in the depression scores and the anxiety scores, just like you see here. And then you'll remember you need to go to the variable view to specify what the variable names are and that there's no decimal places, etc. All right, and then you're just going to correlate these two variables. We're going to start off with the simplest example, and you just have some questions to answer about that. And then you're going to go to the scatter plot and do that. Remember, for any of this stuff that's correlation, scatter plot, and regression with SPSS, you have a yellow page that covers that. So it's the SPSS page. On the front, there's stuff on correlation. On the back, it's scatter plot and regression. So that will be handy to have you kind of walk through what you're doing here. All right, when you do this scatter plot graph, you don't need to worry about all the dots, but just make sure you get the regression line in there so you can see what that looks like. And then you're going to use this information, the same data set, to do regression. And that's where you step through and do the regression analysis. You'll get 4 tables. You'll ignore 2 of them and use 2 of them here. And you're going to answer these questions about that regression equation. And then we're on to part 3, where we're going to do some more practice. At this point, you're going to go and open up data set number 4, which I'll put in the Schoology folder. And you're going to produce a correlation matrix where you pull out just 7 of those variables. You're not going to use all of them, you're just going to use 7. And then that correlation matrix based on just those 7 variables is what you're going to use down here to summarize those relationships and answer these questions about it. All right, then using that same data set with those 7 variables, you're going to plot 3 scatter plots. And then you're going to do regression analysis with those. And that's it. Then you have the key, of course, in the Schoology folder, and you can check all your answers against that key. That's it. Thank you.